Hello, welcome to the ninth class of C++ programming language. In this class, we are going to look at loops. There are three types of loops in C++ language. The first one is the for loop, which we are going to look at in this class, and the next one is the while loop, and then the third one is do while loop. So we will look at the while and do while loops in the future classes. So let's dive into the for loop. So the first line of code in C++ is the include directory. It includes the files in the or the functions in the input output stream. Then we use the namespace and then define the main function. So the first line is defining an integer variable with the name count. So the structure of a for loop is like this. So the for loop has three components. The first one is the initializing the variable. So here we have defined the variable, integer variable count. So we initialize it to 1, and then the second part of the for loop is test expression. So here we say repeat this block of statement until 10, as long as the count is smaller than 10. The third part of the for loop is the increment expression. So here at every for loop we increase the count by 1. So this is the postfix increment operator. So it increases the counter after the loop. So again, for loop has three expressions. First is the initialization of the variable. The second is the test expression. So every iteration of the for loop, it tests this expression whether this is true. If it is true, then do this block of statement. If it is false, then it comes out of the for loop. So the for loop is repeated until this expression becomes false. So and each iteration the counter is increased by 1. So let's start going through the for loop. So in the first when this line is executed, in the first iteration count is initialized to 1, and then test if count is less than 10. Currently count is 1, so that is less than 10. So it performs the body of the for loop and then increases the counter. If you put this increment operator before that, what happens is that it initialize the count and then test if value of count less than 10, and then increase count by 1, and then do the body of the statement. So the difference between postfix and prefix is that in the postfix operation it does the loop once and then increases it, but in the prefix operation it increases and then performs or execute the block of code. Okay, that's it. So in the first iteration count is 1, print the value of count, that is 1. So count equals 1 is printed onto the console, and then increase the counter. So now counter has in the second iteration counter has a value of 2. Test if counter is less than 10. Yes, it is. 2 is less than 10. So print count equals 2 on the console, and then so initialization is done only in the first iteration, but in the second iteration the test expression and the increment operation, these two are performed, not the initialization. So this is done only in the initialization stage, like in the first iteration, but after that only these two expressions are evaluated. So every time in every loop it tests for this expression whether this is true. If it is true, then perform the block. If this body of a for loop can be a single statement or multiple statement. If it is single statement, then you don't need this bracket, but if there are multiple statements within the body of a for loop, then you need to write all the statements within this block of within this curly brackets. So in the so likewise, so count starts with 1 and count less than 10. So when count reaches 10, it comes this test expression becomes false, so it comes out of the for loop. So this statement is executed when count is 1, 2, 3 up to 9. So here you can see count is equal to 1, count is equal to 2, and so on up to count equals 9 is printed, but not 10, because when count equals 10, this expression becomes false, so it comes out of the for loop. So in the next line we print a new line character, so this is the new line, so there's nothing printed, so it goes to the next line on the console. And then in this for loop what we have is a different test expression. So here we test if 10 is less than so the count is less than 10. Here we test whether the temp value is less than or equal to 10. So the for loop is repeated until 10 or through 10 temp equals 10. So the for loop will be repeated for temp equals 1, 2, 3 and so on through to value of 10. So but then every time it comes to execute the body of the for loop, so it prints the temp value. So when temp equals 1, it prints 1, and then when temp equals 2 in the second iteration, it prints 2. And then it comes to do the if statement. So if temp equal, so here so we have seen break statement. So break statement tells the compiler to come out of the for loop. So if it encounters a break statement, then it comes out of the immediate for loop. So the immediate for loop here, immediate loop here is this for loop. So it comes out of this for loop. The control reaches here as soon as it reaches executes the break statement. So the break statement is performed only break statement is executed only when temp equals or greater than 3. So when temp equals 1, this test expression is false, so it doesn't perform break. When the temp in the second for loop iteration of the for loop, temp equals 2, it is still less than or equal to 3, so this break statement is not executed. When temp equals 3, so temp equals 3 either greater than or equal, so this condition is true, so it executes break statement and comes out of the for loop. So this for loop prints only up to temp equals 1, temp equals 2, temp equals 3. When temp equals 3, this comes out of the for loop. The control comes out of the for loop because it executes the break statement. So in the next, and then again we print a new line so that is a new line is printed on the console here. And then again another for loop. So in this for loop what we saw, so I forgot to tell you that you can either declare a variable within the for loop like this, or you can define a variable for loop variable before executing the for loop, or even within the for loop. So here we declare the variable count variable before the for loop, but here we define the temp variable within the for loop. So you can do either way, and you also can write it as a either postfix operation or prefix operation depending on what you want. And in this for loop what we do, so in this for loop we have seen what happens when executing a break statement. So in this one we look at what happens when executing a continue statement. So the difference between break and continue is that break statement exits the immediate loop, but continue statements abort the execution of the rest of the loop, and it goes back to the next loop. So for example, so here you initialize temp equals 1, and the for loop is repeated through temp equals 10, and at every iteration temp is increased in a postfix increment operator. So so when temp is 1, this is not true, so this statement is not executed. And temp equals 2, this is false again. Temp equals 3, false. When temp equals 5, so 1 to 5, it prints temp equals 1, temp 3, temp 2, temp 3, temp 4. And when temp equals 5, when this conditional statement becomes true, so continue is executed. So continue means the control goes back to the, actually it goes back to the end of the for loop. So end of the for loop means it start of the next iteration of the for loop. So so it doesn't print temp value when it is 5, so 5 is not printed, it goes to the start of the for loop. So in this iteration, so what happens is the temp is increased to 6, and 6 is not equal to, so temp is not equal to 5, so this is not executed, so 6 is printed again. So 5 is not printed because of this continuous statement, and then 6 up to 10 is printed because we have an equal sign. So the loop is executed through till 10, so temp is printed. So I hope this makes it clear.